Hello everyone and welcome back to another brew day with Bierlee. Today we're going to be brewing a New England style IPA, or NEIPA. It's a pretty hop forward, fruity, juicy style of IPA. So we're going to try our hand at that, and I've made a couple of changes to my setup and my process. So I'm going to run you guys through those, and we're going to see if it brought, if it made a difference or not. So first change I made is to do with my water. So let's go get some water, start heating up so we can mash in and get this brew day started. Let's go! Now the first ingredient you need for beer is water, so it's quite important. And normally I just fill up, right here from my sink. The problem is that Berlin water isn't the best water to brew with. So what I did is I got myself this 15 stage shower filter. Just got it off Amazon. It cost me about 25 euros. There's no name, branding, or anything like that on this box, so interpret that as you will. But you can see, there's these 15 stages, and they're all supposed to do different stuff. But it features your water butler. It removes chlorine, heavy metals, bacteria, algae, and other impurities. Now, one thing that Berlin water, or just water in Germany, doesn't really have is a lot of chlorine, but any trace elements can cause issues in the brewing. So any trace elements of chlorine hopefully should be removed by this, as well as that lime scale and just that very hard minerally kind of taste in the water. Now I have been using this as, for its intended purpose for showering for the last couple of weeks, and I actually have noticed a difference in like my hair and my skin. So maybe this actually is doing something, and maybe we'll actually do something for our beer. The only kind of downside about this is that I have to now go to the bathroom and fill this thing up instead of just right here in my kitchen, but sometimes that's the price you have to pay for better beer. So let's go fill up some water, and I'll see you guys back here in the kitchen. Now with this filter, I want to get out all like the heavy kind of minerals and stuff like that. Chlorine, as I alluded to earlier, but I don't really want to change any of the ion composition or anything like that, because that's pretty well defined by the city. And if that stuff gets filtered out, then I have no idea kind of what my baseline is for my salt additions and ion additions in my water. So to kind of test that theory, what I've got over here is a nice setup. I've got the filtered water on the left. I've got this normal tap right water on the right. And we're gonna check it with a pH meter. Now I've had some issues with this thing as well, but hopefully it works for us today, and we're going to compare, and hopefully the pH of both waters will be the same. And if that's true, then hopefully we haven't changed anything with our ions. But I'm not quite sure. If any of you guys are sure, maybe you guys could comment in the comments below, and maybe kind of help me out on this stuff, because I'm kind of lost in the dark, and without doing an actual water test of the filtered water, which I don't really want to do, I don't know what the filter is going to do to this thing. Let's at least test the pH, which we should probably do anyway, and let's just see what happens, why don't we? So. Now that's interesting, because the filtered water came in at about 7.3 and the tap water is at about 7.6. That actually kind of works in our favor, because we'd rather have a little bit lower pH than high. At the same time, I don't know what was filtered out alkalinity wise to reduce the pH. Screw it. So we're just gonna kind of wing it on this one. I'm still gonna add the additions as if we did not do anything to the ion. So I'm still gonna take the standard Berlin water profile that I've been using for the last amount of time. Yeah, we'll just see how it goes. And with the use of the John Palmer water calculator and the base Berlin water profile, I added 30% by volume distilled water, some calcium chloride, magnesium sulfate, to get hopefully a water profile that looks something like this. Added my salts and set to a strike temperature of 77 degrees Celsius. Alrighty, so mash is still going. I have our sparge water heated up. I've salted and acidified that. I did a mash pH reading and it is sitting at 5.27. So right in between 5.2, 5.3. So really good on our mash pH as well. So while that stuff is still sitting and waiting and heating up and mashing and stuff like that, let's go over the malt bill that I've got in this beer. So about 60% is just your normal pale ale malt, highly fermentable based malt. About 13% is Vienna. It's gonna add a little bit of color, just a little bit of sweetness. Then we have 1.5% acidulated malt. Again, the pH of the water here in Berlin is a little bit high, so in order to reduce that, you want to get that around, like I said, about 5.2, 5.3, and that'll be really nice pH to kind of brighten up those hops and give us a nice, really just rounded off beer that'll also help with efficiency a little bit in our mash. And then we have wheat and flaked oats. Yeah, so 8.5% of wheat and 17% of our mash bill is flaked oats. Now, both of these two grains, what that's going to do are they're very high in protein. So one, it's going to haze up the beer, which for this style of beer, hazy is actually kind of desired by a lot of beer drinkers. And what that's going to do is going to add a lot of protein to our beer, so it's going to give us a nice soapy, thick, foamy head, as well as that really nice round, creamy, smooth, juicy mouthfeel that's really kind of typical of this style. So in total, we have about 25% of this bill is high protein malts and grains between flaked oats and wheat. Hopefully we have a really nice, bright, yellow kind of hazy beer for us that has nice, thick, creamy, juicy mouthfeel, and then allow those hops to really shine over the top of that. Some nice fruity hops. Once we start mashing out and get the boil going, we'll talk about the hops. Another kind of change in the process that I've been doing is I'm gonna start stirring the mash a lot more and kind of mixing it in, because I think I've had a little bit of efficiency problems in the past with that. So especially in the first half hour, I'm gonna be really kind of opening that thing up every 10 minutes or so and give it a nice stir. Hopefully it'll help. We'll see. All right, so the next process change that I'm doing this time around is this hose. As I mentioned last time, I was just letting it drop into the wort, just drop into the brew kettle, and it caused a lot of splashing and mess and oxidation and aeration and stuff like that. So instead I got this hop sock, and then I'm just gonna stick this tube down inside the hop sock, so I'm still kind of filtering out any fine particulates that might try and find their way from the mash tun into the brew kettle. And we're just gonna open this guy up and let her flow in. Oh, I gotta turn the sparge off. Alrighty, so let's talk hops for a second. We have 4 brand new unopened packages of hops. We got some Simcoe, Columbus, El Dorado, and some Galaxu. As I alluded to earlier at the beginning of the video, New England IPAs, they're not super bitter IPAs or beers in general. So first off, we're only going to be boiling for 40 minutes instead of 60 minutes, simply because we don't have to boil any longer than that. Also, we're going to first wort hop this beer, and because we don't want as much bitterness, we're going to shorten the boil time so not as many of those alpha acids are converted into bitterness, pretty much. So we're going to shorten up that boil time. We're also going to add a very small amount of bittering hops at the beginning, just 5 grams of Columbus and 5 grams of Galaxu. Then we're going to add all of our hops pretty much at the very end of the boil. About 20 grams of each different variety of hop at 5 minutes, and again 20 grams at the end of the whirlpool. Alright, so here's our first edition, 5 grams of Columbus, 5 grams of Galaxu. It's not much, but that's all we need. So we've been talking about making beer quite a bit, but as you all know, a very important part of any brew day is actually drinking some home brews as well. So let's do that while we wait on our wort to boil. I'm gonna drink this. This is the Summer Beer 2.0. Essentially, this is a Bell's Oberon clone that I've kind of stolen. So yeah, let's open it up and taste. Alright, so here it is. It was sitting at the very back of my fridge, so it actually kind of froze a little bit. It's a pretty nice orangey golden color. There's quite a bit of wheat malt in this. As I was pouring it out, it looked a little bit gray. This beer, I had a little bit of problems with my pH meter and my pH mash. I was trying to like balance it out with sour malt, and that's kind of one thing that I'm not really happy about. I probably just totally screwed up the pH on this guy, but it's got a nice thick foamy head. Not much rum going on because I think it's a little bit too cold. It's just got a little bit of like malty breadiness to it, which I'm not super happy with. I've brewed a couple of beers with wheat in them before, and I think I just like put too much wheat in them, and it just makes this like kind of weird bready souriness to it, which I'm not a huge fan of. But I think we're boiling, so I'm going to start the timer on that. Count down until we have about 5 minutes to go, and then add all of our hops in there, eh? Alright, here we go. We got the 5-minute edition going in. Oh, it smells so good. Look at that. Woo. Now just gotta wait another 4.5 minutes. Put the last edition of hops in. Alright, boil is done. I'm going to turn off the kettle and add these last hops. So the wort is cooling down, as you guys can probably hear. One thing that we're going to do differently with this beer is that we're only going to cool it down to about 35-40 degrees Celsius. This is because we're going to use a Flaked yeast, which can tolerate higher temperatures of fermentation. So we're not going to go down to like 20 degrees as we normally would. It's going to ferment pretty hot, and hopefully this yeast will knock this beer out in about a day or two. So now we're just waiting for our whirlpool to kind of settle down, and it's a good time to open up another beer if you ask me. This one, it's called Leftovers for Dinner, version 2.0. So as you can see, it's a dark beer. So the idea behind this beer was that I was brewing an Imperial Stout. And had some leftover wort, plus I had a bunch of leftover hops kind of just chilling in my freezer, and I was like, well, might as well make a beer out of it. So I kind of just threw a bunch of stuff in there just to see kind of what happened. But it's quite bitter. In my opinion, it's just like an overly bittered porter. Regardless, it's essentially a free beer, didn't really cost me anything. And so I will drink it with a smile on my face. Wonder if our whirlpool is done yet. New addition to the brewing process is this. It's an aquarium pump, and all it does is dissolve air into the water in aquariums, and as a result, it oxygenates the water in the aquarium. Well, we're gonna do the same thing with our beer. Our yeast needs some oxygen to reproduce and to thrive in our wort and to ferment some super delicious beer. So we're gonna use this. This will agitate the wort and add some oxygen to it, and hopefully give us a little bit better fermentation. This time we should probably take a gravity reading. For about 10:57. Goal is 10:58, so I'm gonna say with a tolerance margin of, a couple percentage points, we're right on target. So our fermenter is full with wort. It actually looks like I'm pretty high here. I don't have an exact measurement on the volume, but just kind of gauging. I might even have a little bit more than 20 liters. Regardless, it's saying that we're at 30 degrees, so we're actually a little bit colder than what I wanted to, the 35 to 40 degree range. I have our yeast starter here that's been going for about a little bit over a day. I'm going to pour that in. Then I'm also going to take this bathrobe and cover up the fermenter to try and hold in some of that heat so that we kind of bump up the temperatures. I'm also going to put it on top of this refrigerator towards the back, so any of the heat that comes out of the condenser in the back of the fridge can also kind of try and warm this guy up. Tomorrow we can start dry hopping, and in about 2 to 3 days, this thing will be done. We'll be ready to bottle. That's how fucking crazy this Kvike yeast is. It's a beast. Check in tomorrow. For today, we're all done though. Alright, so here we are about 20 hours later. On the temperature scale, we're off the mark, so we're at least 30 degrees, and our airlock is going pretty strong there, which is a good sign. Over here on the stove, we got our hop bag boiling in some water to sterilize, and we have our dry hops, about 100 grams of hops and 20 liters of beer is what we're gonna add for a couple of days on this guy. So because the Kvike yeast is gonna ferment this beer out hopefully in just a day or two, we're actually not gonna have a lot of exposure to the hops on the beer, which should help with reducing hop burn and over hopping the beer. We're not adding a super crazy amount of hops. Like I said, only about 100 grams to 20 liters, which works out about 5 grams per liter. I've read anywhere between 4 and 8 grams per liter is kind of that nice, safe zone to have. So yeah, let's get this thing hopped. Alright everyone, we're back and our beer is actually done fermenting. We brewed it on Saturday, dry hopped it on Sunday, and today is Tuesday. So it's really only taken about 3 days from brew day to bottle day to knock this beer out. That's how crazy Kvike yeast is. But as you can see, fermentation has stopped. This thing smells great. A lot of like mango and pineapple and tropical fruits and stuff like that. Hopefully it tastes just as good as well. Here's what it looks like. Pretty hazy, nice yellow, a little bit of an orangey tint to it. Smells so good. Ooh. And for our gravity, we came out at 10:08. Our goal is actually 10:12, so actually are a little bit lower than what we want. So we're actually gonna have a little bit more alcohol, probably about, let me calculate that. So right now it's sitting at about 6.43%. However, we've added a little bit more sugar to carbonate in the bottle. So it's gonna up it maybe to about 6.5, maybe 6.6. So yeah, it's gonna be a nice strong beer as well. All right, and here is the finished product. Bottled on the 4th of August. Today is the 22nd of August, so we're drinking this thing exactly 3 weeks after it was brewed. Let's open this thing up and get it poured into a glass. Hey, there's actually beer in it this time, unlike the last Brewday with Bierlee video. Alright, look at that, guys. Check this thing out. Dude, this is just crazy looking. It's got like a really nice, like golden, just slightly orange hue. Still pretty hazy. A super nice, like fluffy pillowy head. That is just banging. And I know you guys can't smell this, but it just smells absolutely, it just smells absolutely amazing. Just tropical fruits, melon, pineapple, mango. Woo! So excited to drink this thing. All right, and let's do just that. Why don't we? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's not such an absolute hop cannon of aroma in the face, and that might actually be like the one and only thing that I would change about this beer. While I was dry hopping this thing, the hops in the hop sock were kind of floating on top, even though I added some marbles into the hop sock. Don't think I added enough, so it was still floating a little bit on top, and I think maybe not 100% of the aroma got into the beer that could potentially had gotten in there, but oh man. I don't like to toot my own horn, but this is better than some commercial beers. Like, I am so happy with this recipe, so happy how this thing turned out. the head retention and just the creaminess of the beer, the proteins in it. I mean, for New England style, you want to have that nice hazy beer, but yet it's not so opaque and soupy looking that it looks like crap. You know what I mean? Like there's a hint of clarity there, but beautiful color. I'm getting no oxidation, or very, very little hints of oxidation, both in the nose and on the tongue. Super soft, super refreshing. At 6.5, 6.6%, don't taste the alcohol whatsoever. Just a little bit of bitterness there, which I think is nice for New England style IPA. Most people say, oh, there shouldn't be any bitterness whatsoever, it should just be fruit and juice. I kind of disagree. I think IPA should have a little bit of bitterness in there, so we're sitting around 30, 35 EBU. But wow, I'm so happy. So happy. I'm definitely gonna have to brew this recipe again. If you guys want to brew this recipe, I will put it down in the description below. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, or if you have any suggestions of future beer styles that I could brew, please put them down in the comments below. If you like this video, please like it. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please thinking about subscribing. Other than that, don't forget to write your representatives and tell them you support common sense gun control legislation. And I'll see you guys next time on Bierlee. Cheers!